Okay, let's just dive right into this. Picture this scenario. You're sitting in a really high-stakes Zoom meeting, or maybe it's a live strategy discussion. The speaker on the other end is just firing off details, and suddenly, whether it's because they're speaking incredibly fast, dropping some heavy industry slang, or maybe the audio connection just glitches, you completely miss a crucial sentence. We've all been there, right? And it triggers this very specific, absolutely universal panic. So welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to tackle exactly how to ask someone to repeat themselves without losing your professional edge. I'm Akash.
And I'm Liam. Man, it's a situation that just instantly spikes your heart rate, especially if you're working in a second language or trying to communicate across different global offices. You're just sitting there staring at your webcam thinking, wait, did anyone else catch that? We're going to show you exactly how to handle that exact moment using some very specific frameworks today.
So what actually happens in our brains when we miss that sentence? The real question is simply, now what? Because that perfectly captures that literal freeze response we get. For non-native speakers, and honestly, even native speakers too, the immediate fear is looking incompetent. You instantly start worrying, okay, if I stop them right now, am I going to look uneducated? Is my boss going to think I'm unproductive?
Exactly, Liam. You start doing this frantic mental math. You're thinking, is the risk of interrupting higher than the risk of not knowing what was just said? And unfortunately, when that panic sets in, people tend to default to some incredibly damaging habits. They'll blurt out a blunt, "What?" or "Huh?" which just sounds entirely too casual and honestly slightly disrespectful. Or even worse, they immediately apologize and say something like, "Sorry, my English is bad." Doing that instantly chips away at your professional credibility and the authority you've worked so hard to build in that room.
Right, but I want to talk about the absolute worst mistake you can make here, and I'll actually use myself as the cautionary tale. This was my actual 3-day disaster. So early in my career, I was on this rapid-fire client call. The client was rattling off these highly specific instructions for a major project deliverable. And I'm not kidding, I missed about 50% of what was said. But instead of just stopping the call, I just nodded along, smiled right into the camera, and confidently said, "Yes, perfect."
Oh no, a classic move. The absolute fake it till you make it approach.
Exactly. And let me tell you, it completely backfired. I spent the next 3 whole days building the entirely wrong feature based on my best guesses of what they wanted. When we finally had our follow-up review, the client asked why the deliverable looked absolutely nothing like what we had discussed. I had to swallow my pride and admit 3 days late that I didn't actually understand the original call. It was incredibly painful, completely avoidable, and honestly, it damaged my reputation way more than simply asking them to repeat themselves ever would have.
And that brilliantly illustrates exactly why we need a better system. Notice the stark contrast here. You have the amateur mistakes, blurting out what, constantly apologizing for your English, or doing exactly what Liam did, the silent, panicked nodding. These reactions just destroy your credibility.
They really do. It immediately signals to the entire room that you aren't in control of the communication.
Right. But contrast that with the confident executive-level approach. A true professional doesn't apologize for a communication gap, they manage it. They maintain their authority in the modern hybrid office by literally taking control of the breakdown. It's this massive mindset shift from thinking, I am failing to understand, to we're experiencing a communication friction point and I'm going to resolve it.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the 3-step clarification formula, and reclaiming control. So how do we actually execute that executive mindset in real time? Well, we need a kinetic process that's specifically designed to help you regain control smoothly and cleanly. Whether you're talking to a fast-speaking CEO or a client who's on a really spotty airport Wi-Fi connection, here is the formula you need. Step 1, blame the pace or the tech. This smoothly reframes the gap. Step 2, the repetition ask. This is where you make a very clean professional request for the missing information. And finally, Step 3, paraphrase to confirm. This is the anchor. It proves you're actively listening and secures the right instructions. Let's break these down one by one so you can see exactly how they work in practice. Let's start right off with Step 1, which is all about reframing. Here is the absolute perfect phrase to start with. You cut out for a second there. Notice what this actually does. It completely shifts the blame. You aren't saying, my English is bad, or I'm way too slow to understand you. You're blaming the environment. You're blaming the technology or the sheer speed of their delivery. It reframes the misunderstanding as a technical issue rather than an intelligence issue. Another really great variation is, that was a lot of great detail. It complements them while smoothly buying you some time. And once you've successfully reframed that gap, you immediately transition into Step 2. The repetition request. Now, the gold standard for this is simply, could you say that last part one more time? It's clean, it's direct, and it is highly professional. You aren't just saying, huh, and leaving the speaker guessing about what you missed. By saying that last part, you are directing them to exactly where the communication broke down. Another really powerful variation is, could you break down that final point again? It shows you're totally engaged and just need a little bit more clarity. Which brings us to step 3. This is the step I completely failed to do in my 3-day disaster story. Paraphrasing. Consider this phrase. Just to make sure I have this right, you want me to? Paraphrasing is basically the ultimate tool in the modern workplace. It does 2 critical things. First, it proves you're actually paying attention. You aren't just a passive listener, you're an active participant. Second, it guarantees total accuracy moving forward. When you say the instruction back to them in your own words, they can either say yes, exactly, or they can correct you immediately before you go and waste 3 days of work.
Moving right along to section 2, key power vocabulary and professional verbs.
Now, to execute these 3 steps seamlessly without losing a single drop of your professional credibility, you need the right tools in your linguistic toolbox. Mastering a few specific terms will instantly elevate you from sounding like an unsure amateur to a highly assertive professional. The first term on our list is an absolute lifesaver in the remote work era: cut out. It's a phrasal verb, meaning to experience audio or connection dropouts. Instead of saying, "I didn't hear you," which kind of sounds like a personal failing, you say, "You cut out." It puts the focus entirely on the internet connection. It is the perfect, blame-free phrase to utilize when someone's audio glitches out in a live discussion or a high-stakes client call. Next up is the verb paraphrase. This means to restate something in your own words to check understanding. And I literally cannot stress enough why this is a communication superpower, especially for intermediate English learners. When you paraphrase, you don't have to repeat the native speaker's exact complicated jargon. You translate their complex sentence into your own comfortable vocabulary. It fundamentally proves understanding on your terms.
And our third power term is breakdown. This is a fantastic phrasal verb, meaning to explain a complex idea in smaller, simpler parts. When a client or a manager just hits you with a massive, confusing jumble of rapid-fire instructions, asking them to break down that final point politely forces them to slow down. It turns a giant wall of text into manageable, actionable pieces. It's a very authoritative way to ask for help without looking helpless.
Let's put this into practice with section 3, the echo challenge and speak out loud. All right, understanding the theory is great, but muscle memory is what actually saves you when the panic sets in. So it is time for the echo challenge. Here is how this works. I want you to physically build the muscle memory so these phrases become second nature. When you see the cue, I want you to literally read the phrase out loud wherever you are right now with total executive confidence. Here is your first one. Say it with me. Could you say that last part one more time? Smooth, professional, right to the point. Great job! Now let's move to phrase number 2. This is where we boldly practice blaming the environment instead of apologizing for our English. Get ready, wait for the cue, and speak it out loud. You cut out for a second there. Could you repeat that? Notice how powerful that feels? You aren't a victim of the conversation. You are managing the technology. Let's wrap up this interactive practice with the final confirmation phrase. This cements that crucial active listening step right into your daily habits. Echo it loud and clear for me. Just to confirm, you want me to focus on Project A first? Perfect. If you can confidently string these together, you will never end up on a 3-day wild goose chase like I did. So, I want to leave you with one final truly provocative question. Will you ever just nod along and hope for the best again?
Well, let's hope not.
Exactly. We are challenging you to ditch the imposter syndrome today. You have the framework, you have the power vocabulary, and now you have the muscle memory. The very next time you're on a Zoom call and a sentence slips by, don't panic and definitely don't just nod along. Use this professional framework to step up, take control, and lead the conversation. Thanks for joining us on this explainer, and we will see you next time.